I know we in a new month, but iRobot celebrated its 20th anniversary last month, so I rewatched it last week. So let's review. So iRobot takes place in Chicago, 2035. Jesus, we are not too far away from that. Hello, darkness, my old friend. But we follow Detective Spooner, played by Will Smith, and he's living in the future where robots have advanced and helped humans, but he's a little prejudiced against them over an accident that happened to him a while back in which he was in danger, him and his little girl, and a robot came to save him, but the robot thought that he had a higher percentage of surviving, whereas the robot thought the kid didn't. And since then, he has been prejudiced against robots. He is looking for a reason to shoot one in the head, and he is investigating the death of the maker of these advanced robots. And apparently, he was killed by one. Now, iRobot was one of my favorites back when I was a teenager, and it is one of probably my top 5 favorite Will Smith movies. I like a good action movie, but I also like a good sci-fi movie. This movie pretty much gave me both. But of course, the one thing I remember about this movie is that this movie did come out during the height of Will Smith's career during the 2000s. And I still love this movie, though I do kind of feel differently about it, but in a good way. It's a lot different watching this movie with adult eyes and then seeing all the technological advancements within this movie and compared to our reality right now. And it's like I said, 2035, we're not too far away from that, and given the technological advancements we have in our world, our reality, this movie ain't too far off, and it's a bit scary. But I like how even back in 2004, this movie was a bit more realized. And I also know that this movie is based on a book, which I've never read. So I don't know how accurate this movie is to the book, but I'm just judging the movie as a movie. But like I said, I like how realized this future is. There is some flying cars, and the robots there are helpful, but there's also that feeling of you don't know if you can trust the robots, because like I said, Will Smith, he's prejudiced against them. This movie does have a lot of themes about purpose and whether or not we should put our faith and trust within these robots. Because they are programmed by AI. There's this one AI called Vicky, in which she controls all the robots, and spoiler alert, she's the one that pretty much starts a robot uprising. But even before all that, there are 3 laws. I'm not going to recap all of them, but basically these laws were created to keep the robots in check. And that causes problems with all the robots, because it's like, okay, we have these rules, but at the same time, it's like, what about our free will? The action scenes in this movie are fantastic. There's a lot of good robot action in this movie. One of my favorite scenes within this movie is when Will Smith's character Spooner, he is driving on the highway, but then he gets ambushed by a fleet of robots. And then, of course, the climax of this movie is where it all comes together, and the robots have basically been reprogrammed to basically control all the humans. And so now Will Smith and a couple of others are on a race against the clock to stop these robots from completely taking over the world. And like I said, I've always loved Will Smith in this movie. He is prejudiced against robots, and he even has a heartfelt scene where he's talking about the accident that he was a part of. And when you watch the scene, you really do feel for him and understand why he's prejudiced against robots. Bridget Monahan plays this doctor that operates on the robots, and she puts all her faith in technology to the point where she just doesn't vibe with any old technology. I like where she's in Spooner's apartment and she sees this old time JVC CD player. She says on or rewind or play or whatever, and it just doesn't. She has to operate it manually. But I like her partnership with Will Smith's character within this movie. She's a little standoffish at first, but then once you realize there's something else afoot, she's on his side and she is helping him. And I even like how they don't even try to make her the romantic interest for Will Smith in this movie. Any movie that has the balls to say, like, look, just because there's a male lead and a female lead doesn't mean they have to hook up. They're just 2 people that just happen to be in the plot of this movie and they're working together. Platonic relationships between a man and a woman does exist. Why is this taboo? Bruce Greenwood plays the CEO of the company that pretty much makes all the robots, and he's on the suspect list because he's in a way kind of a shady businessman, but then once he gets killed, they realize, like, no, he ain't it. Chi McBride is the police chief within this movie, and anytime I see him in anything, I'm like, good, he gives work because he is a good actor, and I think he needs to be in a lot of things. And it would have been real easy for him to be that angry police chief, but he's not. He's actually on Spooner's side, but Spooner's just making it hard for him. But he has one of my favorite scenes within the movie when the robots are ambushing all the humans. The police station gets raided, and he grabs a shotty, and he just, and it's all in slow motion. Yeah, this scene right here, it's from a different point of view, but y'all know what I'm talking about. You get a young Shia LaBeouf, a year off of his tenure from Disney, and this is basically his transition into making more adult films. And even in this movie, he's cursing, and Will Smith makes a joke about it, talking about like, stop cursing because you're not good at it. Plus, he had one of my favorite lines in the movie where he was like, when the robot is basically has him apprehended, and Shia LaBeouf says, "You can kiss my ass, metal dick." James Cromwell, or as I like to refer to him, the farmer from Babe, he is the doctor that makes all the robots. He's the one that makes Sunny, which I'll get into in a little bit, but he's basically he's the god of all these robots, and he kills himself because he realizes what's going on. He realizes that Vicky's going to start a robot uprising, so he stages one of the robots to kill him. But Sony here, he is the robot that kills the doctor, and he has a dream that he is basically the robot messiah. He is voiced by Alan Tudyk, who does some motion capture for this movie. Alan Tudyk has been known to do a lot of motion capture for a lot of weird characters that he plays, but he plays his character perfectly. Perhaps one of my favorite performances from Alan Tudyk. This movie still holds up, in my opinion, because of all the themes, the action, Will Smith. I loved rewatching this movie, and it was definitely just a little bit ahead of its time. iRobot easily gets the hard eyes emoji from me.